In Paris today, global leaders continued to work on a landmark climate change agreement. And today, President Obama said he'd like to see a deal that's both ambitious and legally binding. Steve Sedgwick reports tonight from the climate conference in Paris.
The key focus on day 2 of COP21 climate change talks in Paris were the closing remarks from President Obama at the OECD before he left Paris to go back to the United States. The president is negotiating two very thorny issues. On the one hand, of course, geopolitical problems in the Middle East. On the other hand, trying to negotiate a successful climate change deal at COP21.
What we seek is an agreement where progress paves the way for countries to update their emissions targets on a regular basis, and each nation has the confidence that other nations are meeting their commitments. We seek an agreement that makes sure developing nations have the resources they need to skip the dirty phase of development if they're willing to do their part, and that makes sure the nations most vulnerable to climate change have resources to adapt to the impacts we can no longer avoid.
He met with President Erdogan of Turkey in the morning, emphasizing his desire for his NATO partner to de-escalate the tension with Russia, of course, that tension having built up post the downing of a Russian bomber over Turkish-Syrian territory within the last week. He also said that President Putin, he thought, understood the process that needed to take place to reach peace and to get an accord with Turkey, and so they could concentrate on ridding the Middle East of ISIS. In terms of a climate change deal, he said it was a very ambitious deal, but the US was playing its part, leading from the front, having agreed a deal with China early on in 2014, which he thought laid the basis for a broader agreement here in Paris. Also perhaps seeking to isolate GOP opposition, saying if the world scientists got it, 180 world leaders got it, and indeed that climate change was very apparent with El Nino and other factors as well. He felt that he hoped that Republican opposition would understand that this was for the greater good rather than for scoring points against him as the president. This is Steve Sedgwick for Nightly Business Report in Paris.